Chapter 97 to 99. As Shirou watched the two massive hands approach, he decided against fighting back, and instead darted behind the Enlightened One. At the moment of impact, the latter's body emitted a faint golden glow, creating a barrier that the giant arms were unable to penetrate. Incredible, Shirou marveled, unsure if he was praising the Enlightened One's enlightenment of the sacred fig, or his own X-level defensive noble phantasm, Enlightened One Holy Shield. "If you are the protector of Roa, then do not expect me to show mercy," Archaeid warned, her eyes flashing with madness and her claws radiating a bloody light as she charged towards the Enlightened One like a shooting star. Despite the ferocity of Archaeid's attack, the Enlightened One remained serene, still meditating with his eyes closed. His right hand seal changed, and with a gentle push, he sent her reeling back. Although the movement appeared to be effortless, there was no wind or force behind it, just a gentle push. Archaeid's expression changed as the giant arms she had summoned formed a cross in front of her, creating a series of cracks as they were unable to withstand the power of the Enlightened One's push. Crack, 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 crack. With a single touch of his palm, the Enlightened One effortlessly shattered the giant arm into pieces. The resulting shockwave sent Archaeid flying out of Ryudu Temple. Stepping out from behind the Enlightened One, Shirou surveyed the aftermath of the fight and saw that Archaeid had been sent flying away. He then straightened himself up, ready to depart. "Are you leaving?" Issei asked. "Yeah," Shirou replied. "I need to head home for dinner." "Too bad," Issei said with a frown. "I was hoping to play Go with you. We can play at school tomorrow," Shirou offered. "I only signed up for pole vault anyway." Issei returned his attention to his difficult math homework, diligently writing out the solution. However, moments later, Shirou burst back into the temple, looking flustered. "You're back already?" Issei asked, still focused on his homework. "Yeah," Shirou said, rubbing his nose as he crouched behind the Enlightened One once more. At that moment, Archaeid returned with an even stronger killing intent. Suddenly, there was a loud boom as she was sent flying out of the temple once again. "Whoa, whoa, whoa!" Issei couldn't help but exclaim as he watched Archaeid get sent flying once again. "What did you do to that female master? How many times is this now?" "7th time," Shirou replied, spreading his hands helplessly. "She mistook me for her enemy." Issei gave Shirou a searching look, his gaze finally settling on Shirou's eyes. "Is it because of your eyes?" he asked thoughtfully. "Why do you think it's my eyes?" Shirou asked in surprise. "She simply mistook me for someone else. But come to think of it, aren't you afraid?" "Why should I be afraid?" Issei replied. "It's not the first time I've seen someone with mysterious powers. There's the master, you, and that purple-haired ant. Didn't you cause a commotion here before? Even the pavement tiles were smashed." "Purple-haired ant?" Shirou's forehead broke out in a cold sweat. "You better not let her hear this. She will be very angry." "Forget about that," Issei said, dismissing the thought. "I finished my homework. Want to play Go?" "Sure," Shirou nodded, and Issei brought out the Go board. "Whoa, whoa, whoa!" Issei exclaimed as he watched Archaeid go flying once again. He let out a deep sigh and asked, "How many times does that make it now?" 43 times, replied Shirou. "If I were her, I wouldn't have come back after the 3rd time. This female master is certainly persistent," Issei noted. "It's a bit foolish," Shirou said, spreading his arms wide. "If I were in her shoes, I would have ambushed from outside the bushes. But I guess we're stuck here for a while. Let me call home to tell my parents I'm staying at a friend's place and grab a meal from the temple while I'm at it." "Are you really begging for a meal?" Issei asked, with a hint of surprise in his voice. "Come on, Issei," Shirou said, putting his hands together. "I'll settle for some instant noodles." "All right?" Issei agreed with a nod. Shirou quickly made the call to let his parents know that he was fine and grabbed a bowl of instant noodles to eat. However, as time passed, he grew increasingly surprised that Archaeid still hadn't returned. "Looks like she gave up." "Then I'll head back first," Shirou said. He and Issei said their farewells, and he left the room. But just as he stepped out for a few seconds, Shirou turned around and walked back in. "Welcome back," Issei greeted. Shirou spoke helplessly. "She has become more clever and is waiting for me in the courtyard." Archaeid was powerful and could defeat most servants, but she was no match for the Enlightened one of the top powerhouses. At full strength, Archaeid could possibly compete with the Enlightened One, but she had to hold back 70% of her power to control her blood-sucking impulses. Furthermore, facing the Enlightened One, Gaia might not dare to support Archaeid. Hence, no matter how Shirou looked at the situation, staying by the side of the Enlightened One seemed to be the safest option. Issei suggested, if it's just a misunderstanding, why not try clearing things up with her? Shirou gave a small smile and shook his head, replying, "People who are extremely angry are not willing to listen to either advice or explanations. What should we do now? It looks like she won't leave until this is resolved," Issei pointed out. "Don't forget that you have a pole vaulting competition tomorrow. I can't go. I'll have to stay here until I can calm her down and make her listen to me." "Okay." Issei nodded in understanding. "By the way, could I get 2 more bowls of instant noodles? Next time, I'll bring some mizu-yokan made by my mom," Shirou requested. "Sure, but didn't you just finish eating 1 bowl earlier?" Issei asked in surprise. "They haven't eaten yet," Shirou said, gesturing to the meditating Enlightened One and Archaeid waiting outside. "The master doesn't need food, so there's no need to make any for him. And considering she's after you, do you really think she'll eat it?" Issei asked, skeptical. "Whether they eat it or not is their concern, but whether I make it or not is my concern," Shirou replied firmly. "You're something else." "It's great to be friends with you," Issei said, handing Shirou the 2 bowls of instant noodles. "Don't forget to invite me to have some mizu-yokan next time. I prefer the red bean filling." "Okay," he nodded, taking the bowls and placing them in front of the Enlightened One and Archaeid. However, neither of them made a move to touch the noodles. The Enlightened One remained in meditation, while Archaeid continued to gaze at Shirou intently. Shirou smiled at Archaeid, but her anger only intensified. Thinking that he was making fun of her, she stepped towards him but paused when she noticed the Enlightened One stirring behind Shirou. After being hit 43 times in a row, even she realized that brute force alone was not enough to defeat the powerful Enlightened One, let alone kill the reincarnation of Roa. The Enlightened One opened his eyes, looking peacefully at Archaeid, and said, "All things are like a dream, a phantom, a drop of dew, or a flash of lightning. They are thus to be contemplated. Young lady, take care of yourself." Archaeid was confused, her delicate face showing her bewilderment. "What are you talking about? I don't understand." She may have understood each individual word, but the meaning behind them eluded her. The Enlightened One didn't respond, but instead turned to Shirou and reached out, placing his hand on Shirou's forehead. Shirou was taken aback by the sudden action. The Enlightened One acted before he could react, causing him to cry out in pain. "Ah, it hurts! It hurts! It hurts!" Letting go of Shirou's forehead, the Enlightened One spoke. "When the matter is exhausted, the fate is gone. May the donor know oneself." With that, he closed his eyes and resumed his meditation. "What the heck? Bullying a kid!" Shirou grumbled, while still holding his forehead in pain. Out of nowhere, a brightly colored, poisonous mushroom appeared from the lotus seat of the Enlightened One, hurtling towards Shirou. Acting swiftly, he caught it and examined it closely. Suddenly, a realization dawned on him. This was the same mushroom he had placed there 2 weeks ago as a prank. Shirou finally understood why the Enlightened One had squeezed his forehead earlier. It seemed that even the Buddha was not immune to anger. Archaeid, sensing the tension in the air, decided to stay outside and watch Shirou closely, feeling slightly wary of the Enlightened One. Shirou extended a warm invitation to Archaeid. "It's chilly outside. Why don't you come inside and warm up?" Archaeid materialized a blanket, cocooning herself in its warmth, but continued to gaze intently at Shirou. He remained silent, not knowing what to say. A mother was sobbing in sorrow. The girl approached her and asked, "What's wrong? Why are you crying?" The mother replied through her tears, "My children have betrayed me. They threw me into this desolate and hellish pit and won't let me live or die. They've condemned me to an eternal existence in this lonely and frozen hell. Are you angry at your children?" "I despise them with every fiber of my being," the mother responded bitterly. "But at the same time, I love them more than anything in this world." The girl nodded sympathetically. "Such a complex emotion, but I understand how you feel." The mother asked, "How can you understand?" "My own parents betrayed me. They cast me into a worm-infested abyss and left me to die. I came close to losing my life. How could any parents be so cruel? Do you hold any anger towards them?" The girl answered, "Yes, I hate them. I hate them deeply. But at the same time, I love them. And eventually my hatred dissipates." "Why?" the mother pressed. I don't know. I can't explain it, and I don't fully understand my own emotions, but I have stopped fearing abandonment and betrayal. Why? The mother asked, with a hint of curiosity in her voice. My brother and I made a pinky promise, the girl replied. No matter what happens, he would always protect me. I'm not scared or worried anymore because my brother is my hero. The mother wrapped the girl in a warm embrace. You're such a pitiable yet strong child. It could be fate that brought you to me today. If I promise to never betray or abandon you, will you become my child? The girl gazed up at the mother with determination in her eyes. And if I promise to never betray or abandon you as well, will you become my mother? Of course, the mother replied without hesitation. Thus, the child who was betrayed by her mother and the mother who was betrayed by her child formed a bond through imaginary numbers. And at some unknown point in time and place, a magus who held sway over imaginary numbers appeared. At Ryudu Temple, Shirou had stayed up all night, gazing at Arquaid. Are you feeling any better now, Arquaid? Can we talk? But Arquaid's eyes gleamed with a thirst for blood. Your deceit is pointless now, Roa. He shook his head. You're letting anger cloud your judgment. As she raised her hand to unleash her claws upon him, two menacing hands appeared behind Shirou and deflected the incoming attack. She threw off the blanket and charged at Shirou, forcing him to retreat toward the Enlightened One. Come out and face me one-on-one, she challenged, her voice ringing with fury. I know I can't defeat you, so why should I face you alone? Shirou replied, smiling calmly. He spoke with confidence, free of any nervousness or self-deprecation. Arquaid ground her teeth for a moment, before eventually calming down and settling back onto the ground. You're really despicable for hiding behind others. With a smile, he commented, My Shisho says the same thing, so don't underestimate me. I can use all sorts of sneaky tricks, whether it's throwing sand, backstabbing, or kidney shots. Arquaid was left speechless by his blatant admission and affirmation of his own dirty tricks. She simply stared at him, unable to use more than 30% of her full strength in a fight and unable to beat the Enlightened One standing behind Shirou. Unlike Shirou, who confidently affirmed his own weaknesses while subtly retaliating, Arquaid was never good at speaking and constantly used same words over and over. It was a battle that she couldn't win by fighting or talking. She could only emit a murderous aura while staring at Shirou. I'm serious. You got the wrong person. I'm not some Roa's reincarnation, Shirou insisted. He found the situation very strange. In a world where the Holy Grail War existed, it was odd to have Arquaid here, as if he were participating in a collaboration event between FGO and Tsukihime. And then there's Arquaid's pursuit, making Shirou feel as though he has conquered a high-level dungeon and achieved the status of a top player, only to be reminded that he has only just stepped out of the beginner village. She didn't utter a word. She just stared at him, emitting a murderous aura. It was a familiar feeling, reminiscent of his confrontation with Artoria Alter. But the hatred radiating from Arquaid was even more resolute, a mix of Gilgamesh and Artoria Alter's wrath. It was like being consumed by rage, but with more intensity. Your eyes have been clouded by the flame of hatred, rendering you unable to see the truth and the path to freedom. Arquaid remained silent, her expression unchanging. I'm not sure if she can find the path to freedom, but I do know one thing. You've definitely blocked my path to the school sports festival, Issei said from behind Shirou. Oh, sorry about that. Shirou stepped aside to make room for Issei. Looks like you won't be able to participate in the sports festival now, Issei said, turning to Shirou. Your class will probably have to forfeit the pole vaulting event. Not necessarily, he replied optimistically. The kids in my class are quite competitive. I'm sure someone will step up to take my place. I just hope they don't get hurt. You need to worry about yourself first, Issei advised. There are some instant noodles in the room. Feel free to grab some if you're hungry. Thanks, Issei. No problem. You're one of my friends, Issei said before making his way to the door. Arquaid stepped aside, not wishing to involve innocent bystanders in her conflict. In fact, she had seen Shirou earlier that day, but there were too many people around, including Ilyasville, so she held back. As Issei left, she sat back down on the roadside, her gaze fixed on Shirou with a fierce expression, but he simply smiled in response, shaking the Go box in his hand. Do you want to play a game of Go, Arquaid? Merim Solomon. Despite his surname Solomon, Merim had no connection to the legendary Mage King of 3,000 years ago. As the 20th Dead Apostle and the 5th member of the Burial Agency, he stood apart from the rest of his kind. The fact that Merim was accepted into the Burial Agency, an arm of the Church, despite his status as a Dead Apostle, was a testament to his strength. Membership in the agency was based on power, not faith. Merim, however, was unique among the 27 Dead Apostles. Unlike the others, he remained loyal to the late Crimson Moon, with Arcueid, his successor, as the focus of his allegiance. So, when news reached him that Arcueid had awakened and was intent on hunting down the current incarnation of Roa, Merim used the Church's influence to bring her to Fuyuki City. Though he had planned to aid her in the mission, the Burial Agency assigned him to the Church, where he watched dispassionately as the executors and local exorcist bickered with each other. Merim yawned, looking uninterestedly at the Mouse King, who had transformed into an old priest. The demon was in the midst of discussing a plan with the executor and a local exorcist, who had come after hearing the noise. Merim reminisced about his arrival in Japan for a mission, recalling the many exorcist families that once existed in Japan. However, nowadays, only a few of them remained, struggling to survive. Their demise was not caused by non-human races, but by the progress of the human society that they had sworn to protect. This was an ironic reality. The old priest interrupted Merim's thoughts. Anyway, this is roughly the plan. Really boring, Merim thought. Merim was renowned for his demonition. His most famous demon or familiar was the 4 great demon beasts that resided on his limbs. Each was a being that could rival divine beasts. The demon of the left arm was the Mouse King, who possessed super high intelligence and could transform into human form to deceive others. The demon of the right arm, Lady Windup, was a humanoid mechanical doll that measured almost 10 meters when in its complete form. It was also known as a pseudo-angel, possessing powerful abilities to master and manifest weapons. The demon of the right leg, the king of the land, was a colossal monster that measured almost 200 meters in length. Although it had no special abilities, its enormous size was its most terrifying weapon. On the other hand, the demon on the left leg, the king of the sky, was considered to be Merim's most beautiful creation. It had membranes made up of countless animal species and was no weaker than the king of the land. Each of Merim's great demons was comparable to divine beasts, and with his command over these 4 demons, he was a formidable presence, even among the 27 dead apostle ancestors. The head of the Ryugi family asked one thing: "Are you sure that thing will manifest in Fuyuki City during this cycle?" "Absolutely. That's why we're here," the White Mouse confirmed. The Ryugi head commented, "It's strange that only one member of the Burial Agency is here, especially if that thing is going to appear. Additionally, I've heard that the White Princess is currently in Fuyuki City. That is..." The White Mouse began to speak, but Merim cut in, saying, "Princess Arcueid is here for Roa and won't be involved in this matter. I appreciate your concern, but the Church has already made the necessary arrangements. Now we just need to wait for that thing to appear. Can you explain the plan, 27th Dead Apostles?" "Sorry, but I find it hard to trust your great demons," the Ryugi head asked. "Based on the Church's calculations, that thing will manifest near Shinto Town during this cycle. Once it appears, my land whale will emerge from the sea to drag it down and ravage it in the ocean. However, its seeds will need to be dealt with by you," Merim explained. "I see. Using a land whale against that thing is certainly intriguing, but it could also be disastrous for this city, which has only just recovered from the Fourth Holy Grail War. And how will it be concealed when the time comes? Your land whale is 200 meters long, and that thing is enormous. The spectacle will be no less impressive than the appearance of the 2 giants at the end of the Fourth Holy Grail War," the head of the Ryugi family remarked, rubbing his chin in thought. Merim stated, "The Church has instructed us to make use of the Savior of Light once again. The arrival of the Savior of Light has provided us with a convenient excuse to conceal the mystery," commented the head of the Ryugi family. "If it were just the seeds, we would do our best to take care of it. After all, we are the guardians of this land." With the negotiations now concluded, the elderly priest transformed back into a white mouse and began nibbling on pizza. Meram leaned casually against the table, wearing a bored expression. Speaking of which, how will the princess go about killing Roa's latest reincarnation this time? Will it be a direct capture and execution like the 10th reincarnation, or a gruesome dismemberment like the 12th? It's probably not that simple, replied the white mouse. What do you mean? Meram asked, looking at the white mouse. I have encountered this particular reincarnation, and it's anything but simple. In fact, it feels quite familiar, the white mouse clarified. Familiar? Meram's eyebrow raised in curiosity. Yes, the white mouse nodded. It feels very much like the night we met in Britain a millennium ago. That night? Meram's expression turned pensive as he recollected the events of 1,000 years ago in Britain. The Holy Church and the Mages Association had taken action, and many Magi were collaborating secretly. As the forces of the Magi world began to gather in Miyama town, many construction projects in the area came to a halt. The workers, with permission from their superiors, began to evacuate the town. Some intelligent individuals, or those who had nearly perished in the Holy Grail War, also noticed something was amiss and immediately withdrew to Shinto. The storm clouds were gathering, but the impending battle couldn't quell the students' enthusiasm. There was a tense rivalry between the students of Tsukimu Elementary School and the Hachigata students who attended classes there. Both groups were eager to demonstrate their superior athletic abilities during the upcoming sports festival. Perhaps this was the unique competitive spirit of the Japanese people. After all, even holding a school festival required comparing oneself to a school a few streets away, and now that the students of the two schools were studying together, it naturally sparked a sense of competition between them. The senior student council members volunteered to assist the teachers in registering and recording the scores at each competition venue. Parents sat on the sidelines, treating their children with lunch boxes while pointing and laughing at the participating children. Families were happy, and everything was harmonious. At the school gate, the Matu family had set up a stall and were competing with other vendors, shouting and selling their products. They even put up a sign that read, "Buy one drink, get the second at 20% off," attracting many students to make a purchase. Matu Shinji wandered around the competition venue, delivering tea and water to his classmates who had just finished running. He took care of them and subtly promoted his own products. During the brief moments of downtime, he would pull out his memo from his pocket and review the words and mathematical formulas he had diligently memorized the night before. The entire venue was filled with the sound of chatter and laughter. In a world where the internet had not yet gained popularity, everything seemed warm, albeit punctuated by the occasional awkward moment. One such moment occurred when Fujimaru Chiyo, who was accompanying Sakura, crossed paths with Tosaka Aoi, who was with Rin. As the parent with children approached, both Mrs. Fujimaru and Tosaka Aoi felt a sense of embarrassment, though the latter experienced a particularly strong pang of guilt towards Sakura. After all, Aoi had never defied Tokiomi's will, first arranging for Sakura's adoption into the Matu family and later personally transferring her to the Fujimaru family. The extent of Sakura's resentment towards Aoi could only be imagined, but the fact that it had not affected her relationship with Rin was a stroke of luck for Aoi. Despite the awkwardness, Aoi felt compelled to resolve the tension, so she shook the cake in her hand and asked, "Mrs. Fujimaru, Sakura, would you like to have some cake together?" Sakura responded with a polite, "Sure, thank you, Mom." Aoi froze in shock, her body trembling involuntarily. Rin quickly pulled Sakura aside and whispered, "Do you forgive Mom, Sakura?" "I don't know if I forgive her, but I feel happy now, because Sakura is loved by 3 moms, 2 dads, an older brother, and an older sister. That makes me very happy." Sakura smiled. Rin murmured under her breath, "Where did the 3rd mother come from?" Despite the prior tension, Sakura didn't show any discomfort and both sides came together amicably. Mrs. Fujimaru didn't have a strong desire to monopolize Sakura, but rather, as someone who had been abandoned by her parents from a young age, she was overjoyed to see Sakura untangle her heart and find happiness in the love of multiple parents. The two formerly harmonious families were later joined by Luvia, who brought her butler Auguste along. but this only served to ignite a heated argument between Rin and Luvia that seemed to span every topic under the sun. Sakura could only mediate the conflict with a cold sweat, hoping to bring the two sides to a peaceful resolution. The adults watched with nostalgic smiles, recalling their own youthful vigor and the occasional disagreements that came with it. In the midst of the argument, Sakura learned that Rin would be leaving Fuyuki City soon to go to Finland. At first, Sakura felt a pang of sadness at the prospect of their impending separation, but after Rin promised to keep in touch, her spirits lifted. The three girls continued chatting, and inevitably, the conversation turned to Shirou. Huh? That scoundrel didn't go home yesterday? You still haven't seen him? Are you kidding me? His pole vault is waiting for him, Rin said with annoyance. Is he scared that he won't be able to jump higher than Hachigata, so he ran away? Even with his sudden growth spurt, has he turned into a coward? Issei interjected to clarify the situation. Let me make it clear that Fujimaru-kun didn't run away. He's actually on his way here. The sudden appearance of Issei startled the three little girls. Who are you? One of them asked, eyeing him suspiciously. My name is Ryudo Issei, and I'm a close friend of Fujimaru-kun's. Issei spoke up, pushing up his glasses. I just wanted to clarify one thing. Fujimaru-kun is not a scoundrel. His name is Fujimaru Shirou, and I would appreciate it if you didn't give my friend a derogatory nickname. The friend of the scoundrel? I'll call him scoundrel if I want to. What are you going to do about it? Rin asked, crossing her arms defiantly. Issei simply smiled and crossed his legs. Well, then I'll just have to recite some sutras, he said, before launching into a recitation of Buddhist scriptures. As the Buddha once said, Rin, Sakura, and Luvia. Rin pulled the two little girls over and whispered, "This person is so weird." Issei overheard her whisper and said, "I am weird, so what?" As Rin's words reached his ears, Issei couldn't help but feel a twinge of annoyance. Growing up as the son of the head of Ryudo Temple, he had been surrounded by the chanting of Buddhist scriptures from a young age. But as he got older, he began to question the concept of what true beauty really was. Caught between the teachings of Buddhism and his own conflicting thoughts, Issei had always felt like an outsider, rejected by those around him whenever he tried to express his ideas. He struggled to fit in with his peers at school and had few friends as a result of his experiences. His experiences were similar in some ways to Kotomi Nakire's, but there was one key difference. At the age of 6, Issei met Shirou. Shirou was the first person who had truly listened to Issei's thoughts and ideas, and as a result, Issei considered him to be his closest friend. Hey, weirdo, do you know where that scoundrel went? Rin asked. He's on his way to becoming a monk, Issei replied with a slight smile. What? Rin was confused. I'm sorry, I misspoke, Issei said, correcting himself. He stayed overnight at my family's temple and should be waking up soon to come here. Oh, you're Issei, the one Shirou always speaks so highly of, Mrs. Fujimaru chuckled. Yesterday, Shirou caused a bit of trouble for your family. It's all right. We played Go all night. I had a great time, Auntie. Why don't you come and play at our house next time? Shirou will be thrilled to have you over, Mrs. Fujimaru suggested. I know, Issei said, smiling. He's always been very eager to invite me. Ah, what are you talking about? Rin exclaimed, clearly taken aback. Did he forget today's pole vault because he played Go with you yesterday? She shook her head, finding the idea ridiculous. He's probably just afraid of losing to us Hachigata students, right? Shirou always puts on a mature facade and treats me like a little sister, but he's just scared of appearing incompetent in front of me. That's why he doesn't want to reveal his true self to me. Rin crossed her arms, looking unhappy. Scoundrel Fujimaru, just as I expected. Ha ha ha. Luvia burst out laughing. So that's why you were so insistent on staying until the end of the sports festival before going to Finland with me? But it looks like you won't be able to do that anymore. She smirked, finding the situation amusing. This situation is truly befitting of a distant relative from the countryside like you. Spiritual compensation, golden drill hair. Curse you. Luvia bit her handkerchief. You're just a Tosaka repeater, as she observed the two bickering individuals. Sakura reached into her pocket and touched the 7 black pearls she had collected. She could gather 2 more to make 9, which would be a perfect birthday present for her brother. She couldn't wait to see his face when he received them. Sakura smiled, lost in her thoughts until she suddenly felt a connection with a certain entity, and a nervous and urgent voice echoed in her heart. Leave! Sakura was taken aback. Hurry, my child! It's not safe here! Sakura was still reeling from shock when she heard a loud boom and felt the ground shaking beneath her feet. Boom, 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 boom! In the midst of the peaceful festival, the ground ruptured as if it had a life of its own. Suddenly, green vines emerged and rapidly grew with tremendous strength. In the blink of an eye, the vines had ensnared the entire school campus, lifting it up into the air.